All right. So how are you though, for real, in this world with things how they are?
I think I'm good. I mean, I don't know if I know there's a lot of like hectic things happening right now, fires, wars, things like that. But I don't really like, I don't know. I don't, maybe I shouldn't say it, but I feel like it all feels like there's part of something larger and there's like a whole balancing act happening. And sometimes things literally get burned down and it's not good, but I trust that on the other side of it, something good will come through.
Sure, it's just the having faith and all. And I mean, we could argue that things have always been a little chaotic, to say the least, in a nutshell. But you have to make a mess to clean a mess, and we've definitely landed ourselves in a mess. But also, it's my belief that it's not a whole lot different than it's ever been. It's more in your face now. So used to, you had to, if you knew anything at all about the rest of the world and what was going on, it took sometimes months to for the news to even reach you, and now just everything's in our face. So our nervous systems aren't exactly adapted to that yet.
Right, right. And sometimes these like disasters or things, they really play into sometimes addictions that we have, like from in our brain that wants and needs to kind of align itself with things that produce these chemicals or fight or flight. And so things that are awful become more awful because we need them to be more awful for our addiction that we already have through the chemistry of our brain.
Yeah, historically, we needed to pay more attention to what was going wrong because that's what we needed to navigate in order to survive. So, it takes seven positive interactions to erase one negative interaction. So that's why when you think back to your past and things that have happened, situations and circumstances you've been in, everybody highlights the bad things. That's what has most dominant um, place in our head, in our heart, in our emotions, all of that.
Yeah. How do you deal with the news? Do you watch it? Do you read it? Or how do you like how does it yeah, how do you deal with it?
For the most part, I don't. And I used to. I used to be very involved in the news, politics. It's always been very important to me that I knew what was going on so that I could help in any way that I could help. And, you know, that was when I was probably at my lowest in
Mm,
life, is when I was paying attention to all of that all of the time. And we collectively have pretty well decided that the mainstream news and media is not what we need to be paying attention to anyway. It's mostly smoke and mirrors. And so I have adopted the philosophy that if there's anything I need to know about, someone will let me know about it.
I have that same philosophy.
Can't really do a whole lot about a whole lot anyway. All you can do is the people around you, yourself, your own community that you're actually planted in. That's where you need to focus because that's the only thing that you can do anything about, really.
I think about that too. But I have a lot of friends who are like activists, real activists. One of my best girlfriends is Lebanese, and she's lived through war and really wants me to take a stance online about what I think about what's going on over there. And it's hard for me to really tap into that because I don't like war. I don't want people to die. Um, and I have a lot of compassion for anyone who's in a situation where they feel like they can't be their fullest expression because they have to go fight a war, or someone's fighting a war to them, or someone's holding them down in any way. But taking sides or taking stances in these public forums, to me, doesn't feel, I guess it doesn't feel safe to me. But it's complicated because I have these friends who seem to really care and think that their actions as activists will help somehow bring about change. And maybe they're not wrong. I mean, maybe there is a way in which like collective consciousness and bringing light to things in a collective way, maybe in the end does bring about some change. I mean, I think about some of the wars that have been so awful in our history. I guess they did take people coming to the realization that we should band together and stop them or something. I don't know.
Yeah, no, it for sure is really complicated with taking a stance online because in a way, man, don't get mad at me. It's a little egotistical to post about it, honestly,
Right.
especially
Right.
if you don't have any uh merit in the game, you
Like
know?
skin
Like,
in the game kind of thing.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it like and I'm not saying that we should turn a blind eye and bury our heads in the sand at all. I
Yeah.
agree with just war is bad. Just war is bad, and I believe that we are in a place where we could, and a lot of people don't believe this, and I'm just shocked that they don't. We could eradicate it from the planet if we could just get rid of things like greed and
Hmm.
you know, corruption and power, but that's all happening at the top. And it starts, we created this mess a little bit at a time with people who started out on the bottom and made their way to the top, through thousands of years. I'm not saying like, you know, started at the
Yeah.
bottom and now I'm here or nothing.
Yeah.
Um, we correct it the same way, just a little bit at a time. And how do we get corruption and greed and all of that in the first place is people's needs not being met from a young age,
Mm,
so poor parenting, poor upbringing, poor situations and circumstances that children are dropped into and then have to navigate. And then they become adults who are trying to gain something or prove something or satisfy their own um, lack of self-confidence and esteem and the connections that they never got. Because people who are healthy, who have everything they need mentally, emotionally, physically, and relationships, they have healthy connections to their community and those in their family and their lives. Those aren't the types of people who want anything to do with war.
totally. Totally. I often focus, I think, my energy on the parts of me that I look at with judgment or with even self-hate, because that lack of wholeness that I sometimes experience within myself is then what allows me to look outward and view others as separate from me. And the more that I do work to bring myself into wholeness, meaning the parts of me that I don't even like to look at or that I like to other, and I start to see them with compassion and love and care and listen to them, that then makes me more capable to show up with others in wholeness and unity. And I think if we I think that is something we can do, that actually we're empowered to do, rather than necessarily try to solve the problems externally. I think if we did the work internally, we might not have wars and those issues either. And we might actually, I mean, um, if we assume that a lot of like the fires and the things that are happening right now have something to do with the way that humans treat their environment, I do believe that we would show up also with love and care and compassion for the natural world as well.
Absolutely. Yes. The internal reflects the external and vice versa. And the microcosm is the macrocosm. It's all intertwined. It's the
Yeah.
tortoise, turtle fields. Um, I agree completely. Shadow work. None of us are perfect. We all have a dark side. We can't have the light without the dark, yada yada, all of the Zen stuff that we could talk about. And
Yeah.
learning how to accept those parts of ourselves and integrate those within ourselves helps us to learn how to forgive those who have wronged us in our life. And, it's so easy to lose faith in humanity.
Totally.
So easy to lose faith in people and just want to seclude yourself and be like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm done. I'm not trying anymore. I'm done with all of these people and but it really takes looking at where maybe you were the problem in some cases. And I say that as in like, yes, sometimes we're the problem, like, wow, I shouldn't have done that. But also sometimes we're the problem in the sense of it's not personal and it's just okay, for example, uh there was a friend I had and we there was no falling out. There was no parting way. It was not dramatic at all. We just kind of drifted apart. And I beat myself up a lot for a long time about not being the friend that she needed because she was going through a lot. And like, I could have done this, I could have done that. But instead, I just put my phone down and walked away and focused on my own stuff. And see, so that was a sense of me being the problem, but also you can't be everything for everyone all of the time. And sometimes it's not personal. Sometimes you do have to just kind of, we can't do all the things. We can't address all of the things. And sometimes you just have to forgive yourself for only being human.
Yeah, I think that's right. Um, Yeah, I also think like in some of those situations, I like to think about what's my role in creating this dynamic, like where the other person isn't satisfied with how much they're showing, how much I'm showing up, or and that maybe there's something I'm doing that makes me want to feel like I'm not good enough for them, or like I do try to even the situations. I mean, this gets a little bit more complicated, but even situations, because I travel a lot,
Yes.
um in one of those situations I was in Colombia and I got drugged and robbed.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And I think in a way, yeah, a lot of people have asked me, are you angry at the people that did it? And in a sense, I've never actually had any anger towards them, because I I think I created the conditions for that to happen. Like there were red flags, there was me numbing my own emotions, there was a way in which I didn't want to look at the truth of the situation, and there was a lesson in it all that I did need to learn. Now, I don't like the idea that I almost died. And I wish humans were better at learning lessons without having to come to the brink of things.
Yeah.
But I do think that I created those conditions, or at least the universe created those conditions for me to learn something that I needed to learn. But I was a willing participant in my own drugging and robbery, and that's like it's a hard truth to kind of come to terms with, but it also is incredibly liberating.
Mhm.
You know.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't want that because it's it puts the responsibility back on you, where
Right.
it takes you from being a victim into a place of empowerment, but then that requires admitting that you had a part in it. And I commend you for being able to look at it like that because I agree that's also how I look at things. But a lot of people don't. They don't want to. And you could go back and like as children again, you can't really control the situation and circumstances that you are placed in as a child. But then a lot of people believe that we plan out our lives before we get here.
Mm.
And that, it's fun to look at.
Yeah.
And it gives you a different perspective to look at it like that, that even the worst of things that you couldn't control, maybe you did. Maybe that was still you before you
Right.
here. And well, okay, so what was the point? What was the purpose? Well, what did I learn? How did that push me to develop myself in this direction or that direction? Would I have done this had that not have happened? And yeah.
Yeah. It seems like when I look back at the things that have happened to me or for me, however you want to look at it, they
Mm,
all seem to have been thematically linked,
mm,
and they just got progressively more serious over time. And in that sense, like, I don't know, but there's like a sense that I have that at least I have like a soul journey or like a mission that I was put on this planet, which is my own self mission around like my own self worth, for example. Because I think the lessons that I've had over time have always had me return back to a place of where I could go into my lowest self worth, self hate like state, and then I'm like, oh wait, this is the lesson. The lesson is, how do I return to a place of my own wholeness and my own self-love? And I mean, it's sad to say that like a near death experience like really, drove that point home, but I think that lesson had been all around this whole time, like since I was a baby, and it did take me to look and be like, huh, that situation then was definitely related to that. This one is definitely related to that. And so then that at least gives me, something to work towards.
yeah, a sense of purpose is something
Mm-hmm.
we all need. It helps with the fulfillment aspect for sure. And again, I also wish that it didn't take really big things for us to learn our lessons and gain
Right.
these perspectives. But, we all think that we have time and, no big deal. We'll get there when, well, some of us, not all of us, we're not aware of the importance of really trying to figure out your wholeness now, whatever that means, because we
Mm-hmm.
do only have X amount of time here on this planet. It's even the best of lives, under the best of circumstances, are too short. We could live to be 122 and it would still not be enough time. And
Mm.
so we have to really start figuring out how to be happy now. And that means letting go of all of the cultural and societal standards for what happiness is supposed to look like for you. Because nobody can tell you what your mission is other than you. And we do all have a mission. And it's up to us to figure out what that is. And it is whatever we decide it is. And, follow your happiness, follow the joy.
I I I totally use that as like a marker of, I guess, well, some people call it intuition or something, but for me, it's like whenever I feel alive and joy, or curiosity is another one. I'm like, I know that I should follow that, and when I follow that, good things happen. And that's how I think about my intuition. I'm like, well, is it bringing me joy? Does it make me feel alive, or am I curious? Do I have a lot of curiosity? Then I'm like, okay, let's go, and I follow it, and usually it leads me down an interesting and good, not good, but interesting and meaningful path.
Yeah, it's the emotional guidance system.
Yeah.
We get I tell people all of the time, we get too hung up on words. We want
Mm,
everything to be concrete and, there's a specific word for all of the things. And if you're not using the right words, what are you even talking about? And words are terribly insufficient for communication, not only with one another, but with ourselves, with our body, with
mm,
our inner guidance. None of that uses words. We should really use less words and focus more on the energy, the emotions, the feelings. Does it
mm.
feel like good or does it feel bad? And I don't even like the terms good and bad because good
Right.
and bad are, again, just human constructs of, words trying to insufficiently explain this experience on Earth. And even the quote unquote bad feelings and emotions are still pointing us and guiding us to or away things. It's still a communication. If your back is hurting,
Yeah.
that is pointing you towards maybe you need to do some stretches, maybe some strengthening, maybe you're just not hydrated. You know, there could be a thousand things, reasons for back pain, but it's still, you know, an emotional guidance system.
I took an acting class or a lot of acting classes, but one of the like themes in acting that has really taught me a lot for my life is to use whatever is happening in the moment as inspiration or as part of the character, right? And so what I started to do was I would actually feel what I was feeling. Maybe it was nervousness, maybe it was excitement, whatever it might be, and rather than try to block the nervousness, for example, to try to be something else because I thought that was the best thing to be, over time, I realized that actually what was being seen as more compelling or authentic was when I allowed the nervousness to be part of the character.
Yes.
And so I started to not put these values of good or bad into my emotions, and I just sort of started to accept them as like actually they're actually gonna, if anything, they're good because I can use them.
Mm.
um, and that was really interesting because when I started to do that, you realize that the current emotion that you're going through, it doesn't last that long when you don't attach to it any sort of meaning except that it's is what it is.
Yes.
There's some, I think my one of my acting coaches said that an emotion lasts maximum, if you let it just flow through you, like 7 seconds. And
Mhm.
it's true. Like I've no, like when I moved away from needing to define what an emotion was to just letting it be what it was and using that energy for my life or in acting or whatever it is,
Mhm.
then it would shift. It would shift, and really sometimes it means that it's a little bit uncomfortable. It's hard. It can be hard. It's like a skill to learn how to tolerate those shifts, I think. but um but it felt more like it was definitely a fuller experience, and I know from an audience perspective it was received as being more authentic and real
Mhm.
and compelling.
Yeah, improv life. Absolutely. I agree to that sentiment completely. I also have learned because yeah, if you fight it, it just perpetuates it. If you try to shove it down, it's very distracting, and then it gets louder and louder and louder. Um, it helped me a lot when I learned that as well. So, you're in public, say at a cash register with an interaction, a cashier, and there's a big line behind you, and everyone's staring at you, waiting for you to hurry up, and something goes amiss. I would panic so bad, but now I'm like, okay, I'll freeze like I do. And then I'll just, admit it. I'll be like, hold on, I have to have a panic attack for a second. And then you take a breath, and then that breaks the ice because, everybody else is always in a state of panic too these days.
Right.
You would be amazed at how many people around you are just anxious, stressed out, balls of tension 100% of the time. And that's why I do all of this and where I felt because I used to be that person also.
Yeah.
And it really helped me when I started realizing because I didn't know that everybody else felt that way too. Everybody else seemed like they were doing okay. And they could communicate. And I didn't talk for the first like 23 years of my life. Like for real. I wasn't mute, but I couldn't make words come out of my mouth in front of people. And once I realized that most other people, because I had some extreme cases that were very obvious to everyone around me that I was not okay, uh, nervous system wise. But the flipping that over was realizing that most other people also are just putting on a show. And it's not to say that they're trying to be fake, but that's just how the world designs us to be. You have to communicate the right ways. It took me 32 years to realize that, hi, how are you? Is not an actual question. It is just a greeting. It is basically saying hello. It's just hello. That's it. And so once you figure out that other people are stuck in this essentially real life television,
Yeah.
because we've all been programmed to behave a certain way and speak a certain way and interact a certain way. And you realize that since life is kind of like a real life television show and we have all been programmed this way, oh, I can actually choose who my character is. And
Hmm.
I can actually reform my character in this show to be whoever I want it to be. And you know what? This seems kind of boring. Let's spice it up a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's like a, yeah, like it's fun to try on different, we're all going to have masks all the time anyway.
Yep.
And for me, it's fun to try different ones on and see what it does, and that's another thing that I learned in acting is all the characters I've ever played, from the crazy person to um, to the cat murderer or whatever, role I've played, um, to even like, a character that was a woman at one point. um, all those characters are me. If I'm doing my job correctly, if I wear that mask in a way that really is an expression of me, then it is me. And I
Mhm.
think a lot of times we talk about how, at least I mean, in one of the worlds I'm in is like a therapy world. I'm training to be a group therapy facilitator in this modality called core energetics.
Cool.
And we talk about the mask all the time. And I think one of the first lessons in that modality is, no, the mask is you. It's not even our job to try to get rid of it necessarily, because
Mhm.
it is you.
Mhm.
And I think that's like that to me is an important thing to remember. So yeah, like putting on different ones can be kind of fun.
Mhm. Yeah, a lot of people have a hard time wrapping their head around that, especially with the recent developments in the world of psychology. And, 25 years ago, not even, more like, well, it's probably 10 years ago, um, neurodivergency wasn't a hugely talked about thing. We vaguely knew what ADHD was,
Right.
and now everybody knows what that is, and which has led to a lot of problems, but also a lot of good developments, I suppose. But anyway, circling back around, masking is something that a lot of people are talking about right now, and they're like, "Oh, I just realized I've been masking my whole life." And that's exactly what I mean by we've been programmed to act a certain way, talk a certain way, communicate a certain way, and uh, it doesn't necessarily mean that anything's wrong or that you're not that person or that you need to, they're like, I need to figure out who I am without the mask. And sure, but there is always still going to be a mask. You're not ever going to just lay out exactly everything in your head to everyone around you because you don't want to be portrayed as this or that. Everybody's always putting on a show for how they want to be portrayed, which comes back to the posting on social media about your political views and whatnot is egotistical because you're not doing that for you. You're doing that to show other people that you're a good person or that, you're on the right side of history or whatever, whatever, when the truth is that we couldn't begin to know what the right side is until, you know, years from now when everything starts coming to light and truth, because it's all just a bunch of hearsay right now, honestly, anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And I also think, you know, that the mask is also not that far away though from um like our I think all of our masks at some point are about keeping us slightly separate from other people because we have like extreme fear and pain in that place of connection with others. But if we are in that mask, then we're also not that far away from the place that we're still connected to the place where we want to be, even if it's in a place of fear. Like if I like go into my corner and I'm shy or I don't want to talk because I don't want people to see me, or I think they're not going to be able to see me. So I'd rather just not put myself out there because I'm going to be I'm going to feel the pain of being alone even more when other people don't see me, because that's my core fear, right? So I just retract entirely and I'm in my own corner in my mask of no one can see me. I'm invisible. Stay away. In reality, that mask is connected deeply to the desire to be in connection with others.
Hmm.
So I'm not that far away. I'm actually like, the more that I come in contact with my masks, the more that I come in contact with the part of me that actually desires human connection and unity. I think that's an interesting point to me, because I think so often I feel like our masks are often, we feel so far away from that place of connection, but actually it's the thing that in some ways is keeping us tied in some relationship to our eventual move towards our place of unity and connection.
Yeah, it's the emotional guidance system still.
Right. Right.
And it's, stick with the devil, it's easier to stay in a place of discontent and fear a lot of the times instead of choosing something else that's going to be probably also really scary, but in a different way.
Right, right. It's not like we have this idea that that we're somehow, it's more comfortable to stay in that spot, but it's actually, I mean, I can imagine how for your 22 years or 3 years where you were silent, like that's not a place of comfort, even though you think you're somehow protecting yourself from discomfort. That must have been such an uncomfortable place too. And the amount of energy that goes into not kind of communicating must have been so extreme. Do you
Absolutely.
still have that desire that you have to kind of like make a choice from?
So sometimes, but it's not like it was. So it wasn't hugely voluntary back then. Like I
Oh,
wanted to connect and I wanted to communicate, but I literally couldn't and couldn't figure out how to. Now I can. I have the capabilities. I have all of the skills. I've built the skills. And that's the important thing is that, just because you're born one way or that way or whatever doesn't mean, we all have our strengths and our weaknesses. But for the most part, pretty much everything is a learnable skill if you just work at it and you want to figure out the puzzle. And I did. I really, really wanted to figure it out. So I did figure it out, and now I have the skills and I'm comfortable with those skills. But I also am aware that not everybody is susceptible, open to my communication and the experience of me as a person. So I do still sometimes fall into this quiet, fall into the corner, sit by myself person, but it's a choice now.
mm, interesting. Yeah. Yeah. I like that. I like the idea of the choice. To sometimes, yeah, I think it is yeah, I feel that choice often I mean, I'm not saying that choice to go and be in your own energy is necessarily a choice to be in a mask necessarily.
Right. It's
Um,
a different energy now.
it's different now, yeah. But I do think like um, there is a point. I'm trying to think of when this happened recently. Yeah, I think I think I was on a podcast and I felt a place where I was talking about my book, and I was feeling real self-conscious about it because I was like, oh, people aren't going to want to hear about it. Like, I don't even know if it's that good. Um, and so I I kind of recoiled a little bit, and the podcaster realized that I was in some sort of recoiling mode, and I made an active choice to share. You know what? I'm feeling really vulnerable right now because I don't think people are going to care, and they're not going to see me. Again, my core thing. But I made a choice in that moment to share from my place of vulnerability what I was experiencing rather than to go to a place of disconnection. I chose connection. But that was a choice. And that was like, like drastically changed my relationship with her in that moment. And it was just beautiful to see that as it is really a choice.
Yeah, and doing things like writing books or, being on podcasts or on shows or acting or, all of the things that put you in front of people is a constant tug of war between, yes, let me toot my own horn because how else are you going to know that I have things that we can all be happy about? And oh no, am I a narcissist? Don't be a narcissist. Don't talk about yourself too much. Don't, it's always a teeter-totter between what is the right way. And that sometimes can be really hard to navigate, um, going back and forth with that. But for people who are, know what I'm talking about and experience the tug of war of, should I post online? Should I not post online? And it's not necessarily out of fear of what will people think, but it's a fear of what will I think about myself? And am I sure that my intentions are in the right place and that I'm doing it for the right reasons? Or am I just being egotistical and hey, look at me, center, uh,
Yeah.
spot thing. But you just have to check in with your heart and why am I doing this? Is it for me? Is it for other people? Or is it both? Like it can be both.
Yeah.
Probably should be both.
Right. I mean, I think like we all have a narcissist inside of us.
Yeah.
Like, and rather than try to be the part of you that isn't that, like, what if you wanted the attention of others?
Hmm.
What's the big deal with that? I mean, can you stay connected to your fullness and your goodness even though you want others to see you?
Sure.
Um, that is hard for me, but I know that I must have. I mean, I must have a narcissist inside of me because of the things that I do publicly. I must.
Yeah, same.
Um, but
I couldn't
you
speak on
know,
it.
like as long as he or she inside of me doesn't fully take over, I think we tend to be in a good place. But um, yeah, there's no running away from who you are.
Yeah.
And the running away from who you are is actually, I think, what makes it difficult for people to see you.
Hmm.
Um, because you can't see yourself,
Hmm.
right? So embrace the narcissist.
Agree also completely. It's a shadow, it's the shadow work again.
Right.
And people can overcompensate they can be aware that there's a little narcissist in their head. And in an effort to run away from that, they're overcompensating with people pleasing and um,
Right.
over helpfulness and, uh, lots of things that run you into the ground for sure and steal all of your energy. And coming back to life is a show or a movie and you get to pick your own character, uh, it's, confidence feels better for everybody than meekness. if you're around somebody who's always self-conscious and always embarrassed and always mousy and always like afraid to speak up and that's draining for all parties involved. To need constant reassurance for, that could be like the overcompensating thing too, if you're afraid of the narcissist in your head, so you constantly look for reassurance that you're not a narcissist, or you're doing okay, or whatever it is. That's it's super draining for you and everyone around you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas you could just, of course she was hitting on me. What do you like? Why are you focusing on that? Look at me. I would
You
hit
know,
on me too.
yeah, I hear, I think one of the telltale signs for me is like, oh, one of my least favorite qualities out in the world is often like arrogance. All right. Like I hate it. I hate it so much in all of my bones. And then I'm like, oh, okay, I've learned this before. If I am triggered by something so much in my bones, it's like, oh no, it's actually because they're showing me something that I have the capacity to be, but I don't allow myself to be because I hate that part of me so much.
Uh-huh.
And so then I'm like, okay, all right, well, where's a mask that I can put on where I can play with the arrogant part of me? Because when I allow myself to be that, because I have those parts of me inside of me, and I do it from a place of compassion and love and acceptance, then I bring it into the fold, and all of a sudden, like, I have another layer of a human that I get to show myself and others, and it's like it's likable,
Hmm.
it's endearing, it's
Fun.
full, it's alive, it's fun, it's pleasurable, totally. I want
Yeah,
more of that.
absolutely. Absolutely. I tell people delusional optimism until forced otherwise.
Delusional optimism. Delusion's an interesting one. I think about that sometimes. Delusion. It's a real fear of mine, but at the same time, I think it's necessary in this world to a certain extent. Like, if you want to put out good work in the world and have people listen to whatever bullshit you're spewing, like, you almost have to be a little bit delusional.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. But I mean, again, why not? It's all an illusion anyway, at every level. And you can get as spiritual woo-woo with that or as concrete real with that as you want, between the news, media, and also the spiritual aspects that, it's all an illusion. There's lots of ways that we can go with that, but you can choose the illusion for the
How
most
do
part.
you know that it's all an illusion?
You don't, do you?
But you're so confident about it. I think I feel that. I think I see the BS in the Matrix and all that. But I still have my skeptical part and the doubt that comes in. How do you know? Like I think it is an illusion, but how do you know?
So you just decide that there's no way that we could ever know, and you learn enough to know that you actually know nothing. You
Right.
just kind of like lean into that and make up whatever you want to believe in and decide. And if it makes you happy, then go with it.
Oh, I know. I remember why I don't like it. Like, because sometimes it's easier for me to believe the things that are negative and than to believe positive delusions, right?
Sure.
And I think that's one thing that I've been working on, because I'm like, oh, you know what? Like, I'm overly attaching to the negative story there from my brain. I'm like, why can't I just overly attach to something positive if I'm overly like beyond the reality of it? I'm already beyond the reality attaching to the negativity. Why don't I choose an alternative? And then my core fear comes up and was like, oh damn, you're manipulating yourself, so you shouldn't do that. I'm like, yeah, but you're manipulating yourself in the negative too.
Yeah.
So that's the battle that I have inside.
That's the battle we all have inside. It's just
Yeah.
what is real. Uh, you know what? Just decide that nothing is and everything is and have fun with it. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's real or not. It doesn't
Yeah.
make you happy. That's
Yeah.
all that matters. Are you happy?
Right,
You have a
right.
good time.
I think yeah, there's a lot of the spiritual teachers and workshops that I've gone to that get you to the point of like nothing matters. So you might as well make something out of it.
Yeah, that's it. That's it right there. If you study the monks, there's this book called Autobiography of a Yogi.
Yeah.
You're familiar with it?
Yeah. And it keeps coming up in conversation.
So
So
you're gonna
I know it matters. I have read it. I just need to go back to read it, I think.
okay. Yeah, yeah, it's insane. So wait, you said you have read it?
I have, yeah. But recently, you know, like going along with following signs of the universe, like it's come up in like the last three conversations. So I think it's time to return to it.
Yeah, and see what new
Yeah.
information it can teach you this time around. Yeah, and that one's fun. That one will definitely challenge your views, your hold on reality for sure.
Hmm.
And for people who are unfamiliar, it's an autobiography of a yogi. Like, but it reads like a tale of fiction, like or like what? Like this? There's no way that he was encountering monks who could teleport and uh, float and live 60 years without eating. And, like all of these fantastical tales of these highly spiritual monks who had practiced meditation and came to these um, places of reality where reality was skewed. And what was interesting and fun for me is that the most talented monks in the stories were batshit crazy. They're like walking around naked through the town into people's houses and just like picking up a apple and eating it and then walking out, and then they would get arrested for all of these things. And then how did they get out of jail? They just walked through the freaking wall or something. I don't know.
Wow.
They're out again. And
Yeah, that's interesting. I had this thought last night because I was at dinner and this person shows up late and she is what seems like batshit crazy, like what you're talking about, like just very frenetic energy. And I could see the people around me just get real nervous and kind of like shut down and like look at her. And, you know, and I was just like thinking, what if I had this thought as like I saw everyone go into their mask of like, oh, I'm scared of this person or I'm uncomfortable. I was like, what if actually she's the least crazy of us all because in some ways I could see all of us kind of going into our shell of protection. I'm like, I bet what she's tapping into is actually what we're all experiencing. She just is actually
Think
capable
about
of
it.
letting it all out.
Yeah.
And I do think that a lot, I think in our society, there's a lot of, when you hear about women and men and like, women who are hysterical and men who, are all always so stoic and like unemotional but at the same time like women are viewed as in certain contexts as being crazy and unpredictable, and men are so predictable and stable. And I'm like, no, but the stability and the predictability is the craziness.
Yeah.
That's fucking bullshit.
Yeah.
like like the whole mask that I have to put on as a man to not have emotions, and like, you know what, how much energy goes into that? That sucks.
Yeah.
Like that's crazy.
Hmm.
The real freedom would be in being able to let the emotions out. I
Hmm.
think about that all the time.
Yeah. My theory on introverts versus extroverts,
Uh-huh.
I don't think that that's a thing. I think that everyone is extroverted when they're comfortable and when they're around people who make them feel comfortable and when
Hmm.
they're comfortable within themselves. And then everybody's introverted as a way of protection. But I absolutely agree that No, reality is just batshit crazy. It just is.
Yeah, it is. It totally is.
And us trying to
Um,
make sense out of it is also insane.
and, and potentially the judgment of that craziness was a mechanism of control by people who who stood to lose more from unpredictability.
Uh-huh.
Because I could see that people who are in power and have a lot to lose wouldn't want there to be that level um, of unpredictability out in the world, and I could see that. I definitely felt that when I was deep in the corporate world and in the capitalist world, like when I was at the pinnacle of that world, like it really seeks to um, you know tease out any emotion. Like it doesn't want you to have emotions. Like your whole management system of reporting structures and hierarchy, like your boss doesn't want you to tell them what you're actually feeling.
No,
That's not how that world works.
no.
It's a threat if you tell them what you're thinking.
Hmm.
And that gets accentuated, that gets like numbed out at different levels of that hierarchy.
Yeah. Ones and zeros.
That's what the world loves, ones and zeros these days. But like we're not ones and zeros.
No, we're not. Have you seen those memes? It's like what we think chaos is, and it's like just a modge podge of whatever, and then what actual chaos is, and it's like straight lines that are all uniform.
Yeah, that's insane to me.
Hmm.
And yeah, that's why it's like sometimes so nice to really question, not distrust, but yeah, distrust a little bit the logical brain for me, because
Hmm.
it's packaged all nice and logical and in a digestible and safe ish way for me to understand the world. But I'm like, yeah, but like, what are you really protecting me away from? Because I know I must be feeling some other feelings, and that's where life is. It's in those feelings. It's not in the logical brain telling me like, you know, whatever that that the reason for me feeling a certain way is because I need to eat
Hmm.
or something or whatever it latches on to.
Yeah, that's society and culture though, is programming us to stay in that logicalness.
Right.
If you go back again, I was a history major in college, so I always like to look back at how things developed and got us to where we are now. And so the world used to be completely magical, right? In a sense of there wasn't a whole lot of what we would consider logic these days. It was, everything happened because the gods willed it. So the gods were angry or the gods were happy, and essentially it was all just magic. And oh, don't go near that lady because her magic is problematic. And oh, do go to that lady though if you're sick because her magic is healing. And
Right.
you know, and then religion came about, which tied all the magic together in a formidable way. But then we started noticing discrepancies between like the clergy and the head priests and like, what they were saying versus what they were doing. And we lost a lot of trust in the magic and started turning towards science because we were like, oh, well, if that's not how the world works, how does the world work? And enter science, and that's how we got that. And then we became just more and more and more scientific.
Yeah.
I think we've come to a place in society where we need to kind of mesh the two.
Totally. I have this book coming out in February, and one of the things is it could have been a self-help book. I thought about writing it that way, but I decided that I wanted to do it as a novel and include a lot of magical realism. I didn't want it to be this like thought leader who's telling people how to live their lives or whatever. Like I wanted to bring people through an experience like where it's written in second person, and the whole idea is that it like does blend the whole world of like, yeah, your desire for success, but like eventually realizing that the place of success is really a place of reaching your own place of magic and discernment um, and your own sovereignty, separate from the systems that try to control you from that logical place. And so I decided to write it in second person and make it real. Like, there's like a lot of ceremonies that the character goes through. It's like there's like men. It's like weird. It's like all because I think that like in reality, the world is more magical than we allow it to be.
Mhm.
And if we allow ourselves to step out of the paradigm that everything has to have this like scientific explanation, like we would be able to experience the world in so much more of its magic and be in awe more of the time because I don't know, because it really is beautiful out there if we let it be.
Absolutely, it is.
And yeah, maybe we would protect it more and protect those things that are so much more that we experience with so much beauty. Uh,
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, get our priorities straight.
What's that? Get our priorities straight. Yeah, absolutely.
I like
Yeah.
that you chose to do it like that instead because I think a lot of people miss that the best self-help books are the everybody's favorite self-help books are the novels that are written as a like
Right.
The Alchemist,
Alchemist,
The Celestine Prophecy.
Philistine Prophecy.
Have you read those ones?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they're yes. I rave about them all the time. I talk about them all the time.
Yeah,
They're,
those
they're
are
great places for people to start with self-help because a lot of people find self-help books hard to read because
yeah.
they're technical, they're so, logical.
Also, like when in your life, it's just really hard for people to, for me, and let's talk about me, it's really hard for me to actually learn something when I'm told what I need to think or what I'm told like is a better option for me. It's much easier for me to go through an experience like what we were talking, like to have an experience and to have maybe even some discomfort from reading something that triggers some amount of discomfort. Like I am more likely to evolve from a place of an experience or discomfort than I am from some guy telling me that if I just focus on positivity, my life's going to get a lot better,
Oh, great, thanks.
um, so yeah, I also, what do I know? I don't know anything. So like all I can really do is just like create an experience and hope that it resonates or triggers something in that person's experience. But I don't know anything. I could like I'm not an expert. I'm just a dude.
And that's the thing is that literally everybody on this planet is just a dude, just a person. We're just
Yeah.
people. And we
Yeah.
put them on pedestals because,
Right.
oh, they're a doctor. Oh, they're a lawyer. Oh,
Right.
they're that. But I mean, we're all something. We're all just something.
Right.
It's just another label. But what really the best um your title doesn't matter. You can only help people, you can only meet people as far as you've helped yourself, as deep as you've gone with yourself. Um, I had a therapist
Facts.
one time that man, looking back, she ghosted me. She was the most
Huh.
helpful therapist I've ever had in my life. Basically was telling me that she didn't tell me like in the words um you need to suck it up, these are first world privileged problems,
Uh-huh.
but that's basically what she was telling me, right? And then she just quit answering my phone calls. So, I
You
mean, like,
got ghosted by your therapist.
I sure did, sure
I
did.
like that as a title of a book. My therapist ghosted me.
It'd probably catch a lot of attention for sure. But that's just an example of like your title doesn't matter, your schooling doesn't matter, your
Yeah.
your formal education or self education or like it none of it matters.
No,
It's
no.
only
And I
self
did. It's only what?
self exploration.
Oh yeah, totally. No, I did all those things. I got all those check marks to mostly appease my parents and their value
Yep.
system. And yeah, it didn't really lead me to being more fulfilled. And maybe it bought me some time. It bought me some time to figure out my own like exploration without having to go into the depths of some depression or something. I don't know what it did, but it didn't give me like the things I thought it was going to give me for sure.
No, and it didn't give them the things they thought it would either.
Right,
If
right,
you're
right.
if you're making choices in your life to please your parents, sorry, but you're probably just kicking the can down the curb of disappointment. Like either you can just go ahead and
Yeah,
point them
yeah,
and make yourself happy, or you're probably going to become catatonic and do something later on in life when you really hit your breaking point with what you've decided to do that's not for you. And
yeah.
then everybody's disappointed.
Right. I mean, I think in my case, like I was like probably fulfilling some really deep-seated desire to calm down survival mode fears and stuff.
Yeah.
And I probably did calm those fears down, but like it's really a band-aid because it's like, are you really going to live your entire life in survival mode and trying to solve for survival? I mean, that's like that's what kind of makes us different than reptiles is that we don't have to always just be in survival mode. And hopefully we have evolved as a society and in our consciousness to kind of be able to focus on other things like joy and happiness and aliveness beyond needing to survive only.
Yeah.
And so I think I honor my ancestors who brought those lessons into my existence, but I also honor them by saying, hey, you got me to a place where I don't have to only think about survival. So then what's next? And there's so much beauty on the other side of that question.
Yeah, because it is ancestral where
Mm-hmm.
where we are, who we are, how we are. And yes, our ancestors, for the vast majority of the people on the planet, it has been pure survival mode for thousands of years. And now we are settling into this place where definitely not all of us, and I don't know the numbers to even say it's most of us,
Yeah,
but a lot of us are still in survival mode, even though we have plenty of food and water and shelter. All of our needs are taken care of for the most part. It's just we're so used to that survival mode that if we're not actively trying to stay alive, what are we doing? Happiness? That sounds scarier.
right. Right. And going back to your point about the binary of ones and zeros is if we're in survival mode, then we're in a reality of we're either surviving or we're not surviving. That's the reality that we will have created for ourselves. And then we're not and then we look at the world around us and we create conditions for extreme survival or extreme not survival. and and what would it be like to step outside of that paradigm and to tap into a world where there's so much more, an infinite number of options that exist between one and zero?
Yeah, yeah, because the world is abstract at the
Yeah, right.
especially when you take in emotions and feelings and inner workings into account because our minds are multidimensional and our bodies are multidimensional. Like there's so many layers to
Yeah,
human that it kind of breaks your brain to really try to understand it to its absolute depths.
absolutely.
Yeah, but it's scary for people to because everybody's like, well, I want to be happy, but I don't know how to be happy. And like people just keep telling me to, think positively and f- positive affirmations. Okay, I don't know about this. Um, but you have to cut off that survival mode first. You have to
Yeah.
accept that you're okay. Things are okay. We're okay. And then you can start building in the opposite direction of happiness.
Yeah. And I think another thing related to that is if you're asking yourself, like, why am I not happy? I think there's another question in there is like, what part of you is choosing not to be happy? What part of you is getting pleasure from the place of not being happy? What is the payoff you're getting from not being happy? Because there has to be a choice that you're making to stay in that state. At least part of you is choosing that.
Hmm.
And I think like and not looking at that part as being bad, but instead getting curious about that part and being like, huh, where is that point of pleasure that I get in staying down and in staying low? There is a pleasure there. And if you feel that pleasure, then I think you can get to that point of choice of like, oh, well, I can choose to have pleasure happen in a different way. But we have to make contact with that negative pleasure.
Yeah, and that's something that's hard for people to understand. Again, it takes some it the easiest lessons to learn are the hardest experiences. The bigger the experience, the more extreme the experience, the easier the lesson comes about afterwards, right? And when we're in a state of pretty much everything's for the most part okay, it actually makes lessons a lot harder to learn. For
Mm,
example, they say that and I've never been to, nor have I ever had contact with anyone who lives in a country that is war torn.
mm,
But they say that people who live in these places that have always been war torn, they are some of the happiest people that you'll find on the planet because every day is life or death. So if
some
you're
certainly
alive,
certainly some of the best parties in the world are there.
exactly, exactly. They say everything's just one big party because we're just happy that we're alive, and
Right.
tomorrow we might not be. So today we're just going to have a really good time because tomorrow might be absolute shit. Who knows?
Right. Right.
Get it while you can.
Get
Yeah.
it. That's funny.
Yeah, it's hard for us though if like for the most part everything's pretty, the fishbowl effect where we're swimming around in our daily lives and nothing really changes and everything's pretty stagnant and it's peace, but we don't
Right.
realize it's peace because humans don't do well with peace because we need the chaos in order to learn things.
Yeah.
If it's all just even kill, cool, calm, collected, we get antsy.
Yeah. I think that's like something I want to work on. Um, to like have to be able to learn lessons in the peace and in the slowness. I think it's possible. I've learned I every time I'm in a desert, and the pace of change in a desert usually takes a lot longer because it just happens in a different time frame. But deserts have always been great teachers of mine, and I think there's a way in which there's so much to learn from a place of like slow change or slow action rather than always having the chaos need to be the place where the teacher is. But I haven't figured it out yet.
But you're aware, and awareness really is all of the work.
Right, right. Yeah, although I agree, but like I feel like I've been aware for a long time about a lot of stuff, and I want to move. I mean, I have a desire to move from not just awareness, but to like actually. I think that's like the next. That's like my next frontier is to more quickly maybe move from awareness to change, the actual actionable change, because I feel like I get aware really quick now, but then it still takes me some time to actually bring it into some embodied shift in my life.
Sure, sure. I think that's normal though. And we try to exasperate the change with it changing our environment. So,
Mm-hmm.
like travel. Travel's
Mm-hmm.
a way that you can do that. You travel a lot.
Yep. I've seen both how travel has really helped me shift and change and to grow because of different perspectives. But I also have seen how travel has been a way to kind of put a band-aid over something and avoid looking at and like to run away from what is actually happening. So I've seen both sides of travel in my
Sure.
life. I still am thankful that like in moments of difficulty some people choose drugs, some people choose other addictions. Well, for me, I think I like my coping mechanism or my escape mechanism, which has been to go and explore different cultures because I think that's been fun,
Yeah.
at least. But yeah, there are limits to my to the traveling, and I realize like many of the aspects of my adventure were partly like ancestral. Like I come from a long line of forced nomadism, people who were persecuted and forced out of their land and consistently. And I totally see how my own survival mode stuff brought me to partly travel as like a function of not feeling safe in my environment. But the not feeling safe was often a really a really was just me not willing to tolerate difficult emotions.
Sure.
And I think the more that I've like built up the muscle of tolerance, the more I've actually had, a less of a desire to go and run away and explore other lands. I still do, but it's coming from a different place.
Yeah. Yeah. It's important to be aware of like why you do the things you do.
Right.
And is that I like how it shifts. So you become aware that, oh, I'm actually trying to, this is escapism. Uh-oh. But then once you process that and integrate it, oh, nothing changed. I'm still traveling just as much, but now it's healthy or
Yeah. Or like, yeah. Or like I can, there are certain things I can do on the road that allow me to feel grounded and connected to a sense of home within myself, whether it be working out or setting up an altar where I can meditate or um, doing cold plunges and breath work and yoga or whatever it is. There's different things that I do now to consistently, ground
Mhm.
even when I'm not in my home necessarily.
Yeah, and it teaches you what's actually important when you're traveling around and you can only carry with you, you have a backpack or
Yeah.
and all you can have is what you can fit in that backpack. And
Yeah.
so it really puts a perspective over like when you are home, what is actually a need, what is actually
Yeah.
necessity. And I think it leads us to a lot less clutter. And so you get rid of all the junk and the materialism. And when you can clear and clean that out in your environment, in your home, then you find that your mind, your mental world, your emotional world, all of that's a lot clearer also. You know, the interior reflects the exterior and vice versa. So,
True that. Totally.
where are you
Uh,
at now?
I'm in Mexico in a town called Sayulita.
Okay, cool.
It's an hour north of Puerto Vallarta.
All right. Is this part of your travels or is this just where you're stationed right now?
It's kind of where I'm stationed. I came here during the pandemic and found a nice little community here, and
Okay.
um, but I hadn't been back in 6 months. So I've returned back to a place that I called home for a long time. I mean, during the pandemic, which was a long time energetically.
Wow.
um,
Well, that was
and
only 4 years ago? What?
yeah, exactly. But yeah, so I finally came back to this place that it has meant so much to me, and I love dancing, so I get to dance here. It's like a mixture of there's ocean and there's jungle, so you get both those worlds. Um, and it's a nice place to kind of return back to myself. I can take care of my body, take care of my mind, go to the ocean, which is so important and healing to me. Yeah, I get to do the things I know that really like are healthy for me here.
Yeah, no distractions. That's the thing with travel is that you can kind of tune into your needs and your desires and not necessarily um, worry about what your parents want you to do,
Yeah.
what your friends think you should be doing with your time.
Yeah, and the ceviche here is really good too, so
I love other cultures. Other cultures have a lot of things figured out that we don't.
yeah, there's definitely so much I've learned from different perspectives. I think I've visited now over 90 countries, and you said something earlier. I was like, oh yeah, that's like it's a very, oh man, I forget what you said, but I was thinking about it. I was like, that's a very, I remember. You said, hey, how are you? It took you a while to realize it was um just like a statement, not really
It
a
is good.
question. It's so funny to see other cultures interact with that question, or that, because they do take it as a question. Like,
Yeah.
you'll be in like Germany and you'll say, hey, how are you? And then you'll get this like long
Uh-huh.
answer. In I grew up in New Orleans, and New Orleanians are also like that too. They'll give you, you ask them something, and they'll give you like a 10-minute answer about their grandma's sister.
Yeah. It,
um,
it opens, and a lot of people uh, they'll avoid it. They'll be like, "Oh, I'm absolutely not going to ask you how you are because I don't want to sit here for 10 minutes and listen to you." But that teaches us, it gives us the opportunity to connect. Everybody's so lonely. It's systematic. Um, we've created a culture of systematic loneliness because nobody has time to be patient with one another. And that's why we shut off emotions. We don't have time to deal with emotions. we're
right,
trying we're trying to meet that quota. We're trying to make that the second quarter's coming up. How are those deadlines looking? How are those numbers looking? Well,
right,
you don't have time
right,
to talk about your dog dying. I'm so sorry that your dog died. Can we move on? That doesn't affect.
right.
And other cultures, they seem to be slower, give more priority to their relationships. Not only like the thicker relationships that you have with like people in your life, but also the community. You go to the grocery store in most places in the US and nobody talks to anybody. Like absolutely not. Are we going to make eye contact or chat with strangers? Uh,
Right.
but that's really commonplace in other places.
Oh yeah, totally. Um, yeah, yeah, I was thinking about this yesterday in Mexico. I was getting a shave, and I was talking to the barber, and he was saying, I think it was just a reminder, like in the US, we're always so focused on more, 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 and making more, 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 but without having like a very clear idea of the why.
Mm.
And that's one of the greatest lessons I've had here in Mexico is the sort of like, there's a real, at least in this small town, I feel like people have a little bit more of their priorities in mind. They're willing to take more time because they're not necessarily focused on the more and more and more, but they're focused a little bit more on the more and more and more of the connection, of the depth of the connection. And they're willing to forego this like pressure to make more in order to like have more in terms of their social, the depths of their social connections. And that's one of the greatest lessons I've had here in Mexico, actually.
Yeah, yeah, priorities. We definitely have them confused, and I agree completely. We're always trying to fill that hole within us with more stuff. And it's the people, it's the relationships, it's the community. And a lot of times that means a lot of uncomfortable personal development work because a lot of us have so many anger issues and emotional issues and just trauma that we're hard to be around. We're hard to be around, and it's hard for us to be around other people without conflict.
Mm,
So we have to heal so that we can learn how to be around each other with less conflict or healthier conflict
yeah.
so that we can collaborate and commemorate. There's this thing where someone, I think it was like on Facebook years ago, I saw this story. It was someone complaining about how uh expensive everything is and how hard it is to live, and how perhaps the problem is not necessarily the cost of living as much as it is the lack of collaboration in the community. And his point was,
Mm,
or his example was, sure, a really good lawnmower is going to run you probably $2,500. And if you take into account that every 1 acre lawn, half a acre lawn, quarter acre lawn on your road has its own lawnmower, then yeah, things get really expensive. But if you came together and lived together as a community, as a village, the way we're supposed to live,
mm,
um, one lawnmower is probably enough for all 25 houses, 25 yards.
yeah. Yeah, it is. Yeah, I have to say, it is beautiful here. Whenever I've gotten like a flat tire or something happens, even the other night, a, a friend's cat died and people came together to bury the cat. Just showing up for each other. And I think to your point, like, I think conflict is going to arise naturally because humans are messy.
Sure, yes.
Um, and to know that the social bonds need to be repaired if you're living in a small community somehow, because we all depend on each other, that you go through the process of repairing those bonds by going through the conflict or going through the tension to come out the other side. Those bonds become stronger.
Yes.
And It's been really an edgy place for me to stay in a small community at times and to be seen and to have tension at times with people and to have to come out the other side. But it's been so beautiful because you realize actually how important those like strong bonds are, not only for my own happiness, but I mean, not that having a flat tire or whatever is like really truly that connected to, but if something were to happen, it's those strong bonds that really would come to my saving.
Exactly. You don't need to call AAA. You have somebody. You call a person you actually know. You can laugh about it and banter about it while y'all figure it out together.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Well, I won't take any more of your time today. This has been a really fun conversation. Thank you so much for coming on here. Super excited about your book.
Thank you.
I appreciate the copy that I was sent. I haven't had a chance to read it yet, but I am definitely going to look into it.
Please do let me know what you think.
Yeah, I might. I do a lot of. I, I have a hard time remembering. Like, I'll pick up a book and be like, I have this book. I remember opening this book, but I don't remember reading this book. So what I've started doing is I do 5 minute book reviews on the podcast as well. It's
Oh,
just like
cool.
it's like a 5 minute, just here's my opinion on this book that you didn't ask for. And it basically just helps me keep track of all of the things that I read. Uh,
Yeah,
so yeah, that'll be my goal to do one of those on that.
Great. Let me know what you think. I mean, it's definitely an experience. So
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here.
thanks for
Oh,
having me.
let people know where they can find you.
Yeah. So Shabelmania, Schabelmania, Shabelmania on all the channels. And the book Captains Wanted is on every available website from Amazon to your local bookstore probably. So look up Captains Wanted and Shabelmania on IG if you want to follow my crazy journey. I do comedic characters and I have a travel show and a bunch of different expressions. So
Yeah,
yeah.
and I'll spell that below for
Oh
everybody.
yeah. Thanks. I didn't need to do that.
Yeah, and then the book's on it's just for pre-order right now. It hasn't actually it releases the 12th, the 11th
Yeah, of February,
February.
exactly.
All right, cool.
That's
Well, I'll
right.
link all of that below. So if anybody has any questions or would like to chat or whatever,
Yeah.
they
And
can.
please feel free to reach out. I'm an open book and I like to hear if my story resonates with people.
Oh, well, I enjoyed this. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.